a win's a win, but sometimes a win's not a win. On today's show, BC beats Holy Cross 31-28 in a game the Eagles could have easily have lost. We're going to look at what the Eagles did right, what they did wrong, and some of the concerns that we have about this program moving forward. I got Mitch on with me today. It's an episode you're not going to want to miss.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black, editor and publisher of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 network. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment matter more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get yourself started. So as I said in the opener, we got Mitch with us today, and we're going to break down the Holy Cross game. Now, if you want a full recap of the game, actually, right after it happened, I have an episode. We're doing bonus episodes now during the week that I put up last night. Check that out. But I want to get Mitch's perspective of everything. So, Mitch, staff writer at Eagle Insider. Mitch, how's it going?
Like you said, it's hard to be less excited after a win, even though obviously it was a close game and it was an FCS opponent. But I feel like I've seen plenty of comments that were saying, in essence, I wish BC had lost just because they felt that was more deserved. And I think that the weather delay played a big part in that, because you have 3 hours to just sit around and stew about the game. And of course, going into the delay, it ends on this really negative note where they punt the ball back to Holy Cross with 2 minutes left and there's a penalty on BC. So you just have 3 hours to stew on that. But I guess we'll talk about the whole game here, and there's a lot to talk about.
So let's kick it off with, I know we're going to talk offense and defense, but let's talk penalties first just to get it out of the way, because I think a lot of folks are really frustrated with that. And based off of the way Halfley was talking yesterday, I think he's pretty frustrated too. I saw someone saying that they thought he was faux outraged. I'm like, I don't think he sounded pretty pissed.
I think that he was very angry about it. I think the faux part of it and how people are feeling is like, he can kind of say all this stuff. It doesn't really matter until there's a change on the field, because this is through 2 games. I don't have the tweet pulled up, but I tweeted this, that BC has 19 penalties for, I want to say, like 201 yards through 2 games. So you're averaging 9.5 penalties for essentially 100 yards, which is you just can't win games that way consistently. And, and BC is 500. They lost a close one and they won a close one. And had they not had all these penalties, they probably would have won both games and probably would have won them much more comfortably. And, against NIU, I thought some of them were a little more excusable because it was week 1. You're going to be working out some kinks. They were mostly defense pass interference penalties. Halfley's going to be aggressive in the secondary. So I was hoping that against Holy Cross, it would kind of go back to the mean of penalties. But against Holy Cross, it was even worse, just because it was really dumb mental mistakes and not even like mental mistakes, just stupid decision making and just acting insane from mostly one player, honestly. But yeah, there were other players that had some bad moments. But yeah, this is a major issue that this program has to clean up if they want to have any hope of winning games this season, because as we've seen, like, this team does not look like they are going to be competitive against the upper echelon of AC teams, and they need all the help they can get, to get anywhere near 500.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about here was these penalties that you're looking at. You have a quarterback that is making lewd gestures at Holy Cross. He also was he the one that got called on the bench penalty too?
I'm not sure. He was in the area. I think they flagged the whole bench, so they don't say who it is. And the announcers made it seem like it was. I'm not sure what exactly happened. It didn't really look like. He didn't do anything, but if anything, he said something, which, I'm curious as to what words are kind of the trigger points for refs to throw flags. And I think, honestly, the major flag was him pointing as he went to the sideline on a play where he was scrambling and didn't even make the first down.
Right.
So, the broadcasters mentioned that, Castellanos is a very emotional player. He plays a lot of swagger. And that's all well and good and fun when you're making big plays and winning games. But when you're in a tight game against an FCS opponent, and granted, a good FCS opponent, Holy Cross is probably a top 10 team in the FCS. But when you're in this close game and you're doing that kind of stuff, that is insane. Like you just cannot say, and I mean, this is the thing when you're playing a true sophomore quarterback. And granted, I think Moorhead's only 1 year older, so it's not a huge difference. But you just see like this lack of maturity where he's doing this kind of stuff. And if it was, I mean, I kind of hope it wasn't him on the bench, because it's like, man, then you just clearly have something. Not, I mean, I don't want to say wrong with you, but like you gotta change your mental approach of how you're playing this game, because you are actively costing your team chances and the ability to win games if you're going to play like this.
So I know we did not plan on talking penalties, but I want your thoughts on it. We've already into like minute 6 of talking about it. Like, how does Hafley rein this in? Like, how does he get control of his like? This seems like a major issue, and that he and the leaders on this team, staff and like guys like Vinny DePalma, need to get in front of this and stop it. So what do they do?
So I think you mentioned Vinny DePalma. I think that some of this comes down to this, and it's not like on them, but it's not their fault if it doesn't happen. But like I think that the best strategy towards eliminating issues like this is your senior leaders have to step up and corral guys. And I even tweeted this early in the game that BC players, and especially Castellanos, were doing a lot of trash talking when the game was still close. And I was like, this is going to come back to bite them in some way. And it really did. And, you saw these penalties on special teams where guys were just, playing through the whistle. And again, that's tough. That's a tough one to coach out, because you always coach guys play through the whistle, finish the play. And sometimes, you get flagged for it. But it just happened too much that, and again, it's hard for coaches because you don't want to tell guys to be less aggressive and to get off the, take down your effort, because that's just not how football is properly played. But there's even one penalty where it was and I know people are mad about this penalty. It's the 3rd and 22 hands to face penalty on Nito Ekpala. That one is a different story, because that one is heat of the moment. His hand just slid up the offensive lineman to his face. He wasn't like trying to be dirty or anything. It's just that's an unlucky thing. I'm talking more about these unnecessary roughness extensions through the play where these are costing. And honestly, those penalties on Holy Cross's penultimate drive of the first half, the kicking out of bounds along with the unnecessary roughness put Holy Cross at the 50, and that pretty much alone allowed them to score. If they don't get those penalties, they probably don't score on that drive. So that swings the game in a huge way. But in terms of like kind of answering your question about how do you coach this out, I mean, this is a tough thing. And I think one way that you do it maybe is you're practicing with, and I don't know exactly where you got them, but you can get refs to come in to your practices, and you get them to come in, and so they know it's like we're not just practicing without refs. It's like, no, we need to know like what is a penalty and what is not, and you need your guys to be extra vigilant for when things are getting out of hand. As in, when I say guys, I mean like coaches and assistants. Like I don't know if you empower some of like the lower level assistants or the grad assistants, or heck, even though I think BC calls them hydration managers, which is the most beautiful word for water boy. But you need to empower everybody to say like, hey, this is a problem that we need to fix now, because if we don't, we are going to not be able to win games because of this problem. So I think you need to, this is a group effort. It's not just on the coaches. It's not just the players. It's on everybody to come together and say, this is a problem that we need to fix right now.
And, you look at the penalties, it was both ways too, because Holy Cross got for a bunch too. And they would have lost that game. BC would have lost that game if Holy Cross played a little cleaner. So just some thoughts there. That I think that was a big question mark a lot of folks had, and a big moment of frustration for BC fans. But we're going to talk about one thing that I thought went pretty well, and that was the offense. We're going to get into that in just a moment. Now, I want to tell you about Athletic Brewing. Now time for our game changer of the week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like you, Vinny DePalma, who had the big play at the end of that game, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that taste really good. We just said it. Vinny, highest rated pro football focused player of this game. I know he's been getting, I think he got a little bit of slack after that first game, but he looked a lot stronger in this one. just like Athletic Brewing Company, has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. They got IPAs, golden sours, and more, and they're constantly releasing limited edition experimental styles to add to their variety. They're fit for all time. So check out Athletic Brewing Company. And you use promo code Locked On their website, you get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewingcompany.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. All right, Locked On BC, AJ Black here, and we are talking about the game this weekend. We're looking at the offense, and I don't have any pictures of the offense. I was saying to Mitch before this game that the only picture company that we can use for Locked On was they sometimes contract out to smaller companies, and they had the Worcester Telegram, I think, and it's all Holy Cross pictures. Like you got them cheering, and so there's no offense. But the offense, I thought, especially that first half, played some of their best football I've seen out of BC offensively in a long time. What were your thoughts about the offense?
Yeah, I was very impressed by, we talked about how BC had to run the ball in this game, and that's exactly what they did. Even after Pat Garwell went out with an ankle injury, Kai Robichaud took over and had a really good game. Just great blocking from the offensive line, got tons of push. When I was rewatching the game back, just lots of just really perfectly blocked plays. And, you saw some inventiveness with the offensive play calling and play design. You had this package, and I think there were about 5 plays where they had Ryan O'Keefe lined up as the running back in the backfield, and they would split Kai Robichaud out as a wide receiver. And most of them were 3-by-1 sets, so 3 receivers to one side, 1 to the other. But they had a lot of different ways of getting into that, and that's how Ryan O'Keefe scored his touchdown. And they threw a swing pass to him out of that formation as well. So, you're seeing the playbook open up a little more. I thought the way that they called some good designed runs with Castellanos. I thought he really, again, for the first half, I thought he did a really nice job of, he would read out he had so much time in the pocket, which is, again, the offensive line is just so much better. He would read the play out, go through his progression, and then, then he'd go and scramble. And again, he's very good at scrambling. Didn't throw the ball downfield a ton, but when he did, I thought he picked his spots nicely. You had that big throw down the sideline, Jaden Williams. You had another one, Jaden Williams, that Williams fumbled, and then luckily Cameron Barfield picked up, which was great. But I like that he wasn't really, in the first half again, he wasn't really trying to do too much. I thought in the second half, that's when things kind of went off the rails, and that's also when he started committing those penalties. So in terms of all that, I'm pretty impressed. My one area of concern is, and of course, this is going to come back to a player that I mentioned all the time, and it's not really his fault. This is more about the offense. A lot of portions of the game, BC would send out Jack Conley as a 6th offensive lineman, and those were pretty much all running plays. And my concern is against better opponents, is BC going to have to rely on a 6-0 line package to be able to run the ball? I don't think so, but they went to that package a lot. Maybe it's just because it's like, hey, we know this is working. Let's just keep going until they stop it. But I'm just kind of making a note here that, hey, let's hope that this isn't the case. And again, BC was very effective running the ball, so that was at least good to see. But it was just something that I was like, this is interesting that they're using this package so much. And again, it could just be an opponent thing. But for the first half, I was very impressed with the offense. In the second half, and again, not even against FCS teams, and again, Holy Cross is a good FCS team. Most offenses, the top 10 teams excluded, you're not going to, score on every drive. So, in BC in the second half, they have one drive that doesn't go anywhere. It's like, okay, they had a penalty, I think. So, some drives that just, things don't go your way. It's fine. The next drive, I think, was the one where Castellanos had the penalty, and that was one where they were moving the ball well. And so that's just, a huge mental mistake by him that killed a drive. I think they had another drive that didn't go anywhere, and I can't remember why, but then they got their final touchdown, I think right as the quarter turned over. So, you're seeing I'm liking the passing concepts. I think they're doing a decent job of playing to Castellanos' strengths. I do think they still need to kind of take the decision-making out of his hands sometimes, because there was one play, and I think might have been BC's final real drive, not counting the kneel downs, was when he kind of looked at the slot corner, went to hand off, and then faked handing off and just kind of tried to bootleg out and got tackled for a loss. And I could be reading that play wrong, but that felt the way he was just looking at that play and his body language. That felt like an ad lib from him. And
Mhm.
frankly, again, he's a good player and he has some very good athletic traits. He is not in a position to make those kind of ad lib calls at this point. You can scramble, you can do all that. You can make plays off schedule as a passer, but you cannot just be bailing out of schemes because if what he saw was he read it wrong, and that slot corner was blitzing all day, and I know he thinks he's fast, but he was not getting that edge. So that was just a silly play for me. But again, I think on the most part, I was impressed by the offense. I thought they took what went well against Northern Illinois and they built on that with some similar concepts and then kind of built off of those well against Holy Cross for, I'll say, most of the game, not all of it.
And so, just as a point of comparison here, I know a lot of folks are going, but it's Holy Cross, and you're never going to appease them no matter what BC does. But I want to give you the differences in running block grades on Pro Football Focus for Holy Cross and against Maine last year. So you get your two FCS schools, and Holy Cross is a better FCS school than Maine. So their run block score this year was a 75.9, solid green, very good score. Last year against Maine, it was a 57.1.
And Maine was one of their best rushing games of that season.
Yeah, that was, I think, their second highest. No, that was their highest grade.
Mm-hmm.
No, Syracuse was their highest grade at the end of the year. But that tells you how improved that run block was.
And again, it's against the FCS, but every play, offensive line just getting 2 to 3 yards of push. And the running backs just have infinitely greater lanes. You know, I know people are like, "Oh, this team sucks. They're worse than last year." It's like, I promise you, the defense we can talk about, but the offense definitely not. Because I mean, I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, they scored 38 against Maine last year. They scored 34 against Louisville, and I think those are the only two teams they scored 30 against last year. But you know, Louisville, that game was wild. It was just back and forth, and Maine was an FCS opponent. But you know, this team is showing the ability to have extended drives and move the ball efficiently and consistently. So, you know, this week that is going to be tougher against one of the best teams in the country. But, you know, this is something that we're seeing solid progress in the offense from week to week, and especially when compared to last year.
And just to go back to something you mentioned, the ad-libbing by Castellanos, if he ad-libs against Florida State, he's going to get killed.
Yeah. I don't think guys like Jared Verse and Kalen DeLoach and who is the other one? Akeem Dent are gonna. That's not gonna work if you can't. Yeah, so I just really hope that they find a way to rein him in, both on when he's on the field and when he's not on the field. Apparently.
Okay. In the moment, we're gonna get into one of our bigger areas of concern. We're gonna talk about the defense, who played a little sloppy, and there's some emerging trends that we're starting to get concerned about on this defensive end. So. Get ready for the NFL season with the incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to other player props and more. I think the BC spread right now on FanDuel is minus 28.5 for Florida State. So not sure where you're feeling for that right now. I think a lot of BC fans are hammering the Florida State line. It's probably going to move by the way the BC fans are betting. So go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon now and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, the official sports partner of the NFL. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm joined again by Mitch. And I want to talk about the defense because this was a group. I can't believe Hafley said what he said after the game, where he said, I'm not worried about the run defense. They gave up 260 yards on the ground. Multiple extended drives from Holy Cross. They had their first sack of the year, I think, from Sheeta Salah, but no real pressure. Mitch, what were your thoughts about this defense?
So I think some of the statistics for this are going to be a little misleading. But so if you want to talk, if Hafley is taking a strict constructionist view of run defense and say, okay, when the offense has a designed run, regardless of who it is, I felt better about that than, you know, defending scrambles for Matthew Sluka. I can see where he's coming from. But the problem is they still had a big problem with defending Matthew Sluka's scrambles, which is something that I was like, this is going to be the big thing. This is Sluka's thing. That's what he does. He scrambles. And he killed BC a ton scrambling. Obviously, that huge scramble right when they came back from the weather delay. I think most, if not all, of his rushing touchdowns were on scrambles. And when I was rewatching it, I found a lot of plays where there either just wasn't a spy or there was, and one of the defensive ends got too far upfield and lost contain. So I didn't really understand or agree with that, the way that strategy played out. In terms of the other run defense, it's hard for me to really agree with what Hafley's saying. Because again, like it's not like most of Holy Cross's design runs were not super complex or exotic. It was a lot of downhill gap schemes, multipolar stuff, a lot of the same stuff BC was running, honestly, just out of slightly different formational looks. But I mean, again, allowing a lot of big chunk runs. They struggle to get off the field on third and fourth and shorts. When you look at the rushing, so this is from Game on Paper, BC actually technically did a better job of stopping Holy Cross from running the ball than vice versa. Holy Cross stopping BC from running the ball, because BC stuffed 6 of Holy Cross's runs, which is yards gained is 0, lesser than or equal to 0, and that was 16% of Holy Cross runs were stuffed for that, and then they stopped, which is 2 yards or less gained, 45% of their runs. So, I do think that rewatching this game, the highlights stick out in your mind. Obviously, the big runs stick out. I do think that there were a lot of plays where BC actually did stuff them. They stopped them pretty quickly. They got guys in the right gaps. But there were a good amount of times, too, where I saw both defensive tackles getting double teamed and blocked pretty far downfield. So I would have to probably get some real all 22 film as opposed to just the broadcast copy to kind of really evaluate what's going on in run defense. And so it's tough to say, but I really can't agree that I'm saying I felt that the run defense, worked according to plan. I mean, if the plan is to give up almost 200 yards rushing on designed runs, then that's probably not going to be effective especially against a team like Florida State that also is a pretty similar offense in that they have the quarterback run. They have he scrambles a good bit. They have a lot of designed runs with him, and they run a lot of the same schemes in terms of multipolar gap, gap power schemes where they have multiple pullers on GH counter, GT power, and all that kind of stuff. So that's tough. In terms of the passing game, again, it's kind of hard to evaluate because the sample size is pretty small. I thought BC did, in terms of just the actual coverage aspect, BC did a pretty decent job, I felt. You had Jalen Coker, who, again, very good wide receiver at the FCS level, could probably play in the Power 5 if I had to guess. He had that really crazy catch down the left sideline, great play there. And then the other big play was one that was after the kick out of bounds, the other penalty, where they hit the Jalen Shorter down the middle of the field, or Justin Shorter, can't remember his name. And there was a penalty as well. So that was just, 2 really great catches. But other than that, I didn't really find Sluka was dealing. I think he dropped back to pass 27 times and only threw 15 passes. So, and again, not a lot of them were, super big downfield. And, there were a good amount of throws he missed. There was a really funny play where I think he threw a post to Jalen Coker and missed him by a good margin. And Coker, it was a low pass, and Coker had fall down to even try to get it. And the announcer's oh, he had him for a touchdown there. It's he was also right between 2 defenders. So there was just no way he was going to score with the way that ball was thrown. So, that I felt was fine. I am getting concerned about the pass rush because, and I tweeted this out earlier on Sunday, that Donovan Ezaraku has been nigh invisible in these first 2 games. And again, it's been unorthodox offenses that don't have much of a traditional drop back game, but I think he has 1 pressure through 2 games. And I think it was the QB hit that he was penalized for against NIU. And he's playing, he is being rotated out, but I think he still leads BC in pass rush snaps. So he's the guy, but he's just not showing up. And that is against a MAC team and against an FCS team. That's concerning. I'm not sure if it's because offenses are just saying, okay, we know that's the guy, so we're just going to slide all our protection towards him, which in that case, I'm okay, that's tough for most pass rushers to deal with. I get it. And maybe that's why, Shida Salah is having a pretty good start to the season in terms of generating pressure. But even then, the guys behind him, and we thought this defensive line was going to be, really good. We had, guys transferring in, we had experienced players, but, they're just not getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And again, with Sluka, it's hard to kind of parse it out because he is such an effective scrambler and mover in the pocket. But even against Northern Illinois, like they weren't able to generate a ton of pressure. And I kind of explained in my article like why part of the reason why that was the case, and how it was schemed up. But if this is how this is going to work against better offensive lines in the ACC moving down the season, then that's really concerning because we've seen how if BC isn't getting a pass rush, their cornerbacks are on islands and man coverage, and if they're feeling the pressure in that in man coverage, they're going to start panicking and committing penalties. So this could end up being doubly bad for BC. So, again, is there two not great? I would say not great performances by the defense. I thought they came together a lot better at points in the NIU game. This game was honestly really tough for them. And I think kind of how we talked about how penalties really hurt BC. I think you could make the argument the other way where penalties really hurt Holy Cross. And so it's like, if they hadn't been committing as many penalties, is BC's defense able to get as many stops as they did? Because in addition to them committing a lot of defensive pass interference, their offense had a lot of holdings, false starts, what have you. So, the red flag is definitely up for this defense, and it is not going to get any easier this week, as I think they're going to play their best opponent they're going to play this whole season. So this could be a long week and the week after for the Eagles.
And I know this is just a random depth thought of mine that's popped up that I keep looking at and going, why is Quan Williams not playing? And I have my thoughts. I was looking at he played 15 snaps in this game, which is way up from the NIU, which I don't even think he played. So
he played two against NIU, I think.
I wonder if he was hurt. I wonder if he is coming back from an injury, because it seems like they might be easing him back in. And I wonder if he ends up playing more as they get closer down the stretch.
That would be the most logical explanation, especially for a guy who is their bigger, more traditional nose tackle that you throw him down in the A gap or head up on the center and say, hey, hold this point. He's the guy that you would want to be playing against teams like NIU and Holy Cross that run the ball a ton. The fact that he's not playing, especially now that Nigel Tate, he probably is playing more because Nigel Tate is down with injury. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the most easiest explanation. And again, the fact that he got a pretty good increase in snaps this week, I think that's telling. I'm not. I really couldn't speculate as to any other reason.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either way.
Mean, I'll say like he is a younger player, so kind of maybe just he hit a wall. It's a sophomore slump, if you will. They're giving more snaps to a guy like Chris Banks, who's a veteran. The fact that they are playing Cam Horsley more in that one tech role where he is the nose tackle, and
he's had a great season, I have to say, of anyone on that defensive line.
Yeah. So like Chris Banks and George Rooks are playing that 3 tech now. So you could maybe have a bit of a log jam where you have Horsley and it's like, okay, we know he's playing well. We want to keep him out there. So that could be another reason why, but I think maybe part of the reason why they moved Horsley to that nose tackle position is because maybe Williams is working back from an injury, like you said.
And I just, as a small event, the injury news, still just go quickly chronologically here. Tuesday, Jeff Halfley says that I believe the quote was, "We're all healthy. Everyone will play on Saturday." I believe that was the exact quote he said. Saturday morning, Alex Broom is missing the game due to injury. Okay. Then, what was it? The second quarter, everyone's wondering where Pat Garwo goes. And Mark Herzlig that said?
One of them said that the BC people have told us that he is healthy. We are just riding the hot hand. Cut to the start of the very end of the third quarter. You see Pat Garwo in street clothes and walking boot. And then they say, oh, we've come back and BC told us that he is out with an ankle injury.
So don't get frustrated with me when I don't have a clue with what the injury stuff is, because they are purposely obfuscating a lot of the stuff so that I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I had a tweet about it. And again, like, sure, maybe they don't notice anything, but if this like organization, athletic department wants the media to cover them seriously, then just, again, I think you can find ways to do this and not just outright lie. And we talked about this a lot last week with the Moorhead Castellanos thing. It's kind of continuing with this Garwo situation, which again, it's developing in the game. So, I don't know, maybe they just didn't know yet, but then just say you don't know. Like, that's pretty simple. And again, I this one is arguably less excusable because it's not like Holy Cross is plugged into the broadcast and it's going to change their game plan if Pat Garwo is out of the game, because Kai Robichaud is already running all over them. So, like, what does it matter? Like,
You know what
really
they
frustrating.
need?
And I know everybody's really frustrated with this program now for a variety of reasons, but they just keep mounting. And so I get why people are frustrated.
The ACC just needs to do what the Big Ten does.
The college football period needs to do what Big Ten does.
Just let the guesswork get out of it. Make them release an injury report. And it'll save headaches for everyone involved, including the coaching staff, because now they can't, dance around it.
As long as colleges and college football is getting more in bed with sports betting, that has to be coming down the road, because I think that is a big reason why the NFL adopted it. Along whatever they did, because of betting and coaches. Back then coaches lying and be like, oh, this guy's healthy or whatever. So that's I think that is coming, but it's probably not going to happen this year.
All right, so Mitch, we got to get going. So where can people find you?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. And again, just keep your eyes on Eagle Insider for my work. I'm starting to write my rewatch articles for this game. And those will be up in the coming weeks. And then we'll be previewing Florida State, which is coming up on Saturday, which I'm sure is going to be really fun.
I'll be there. The game, I had a choice between this game and the Holy Cross game.
Just tell me you're not bringing your kids. They're probably too young to watch that kind of football game.
No, I'm going to take them to either UVA or UConn.
Okay, good. Those are a G and PG rated football games. This is going to be a NC-17 slasher flick.
Yeah, I'm not. We'll talk more about that one on Friday, Mitch. We'll see what Jeff Hafley has to say this week. We'll get some more info on him and everything else that's going on in BC sports. You can check here on Locked On BC. Thank you all who have listened. Make sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Our show yesterday had a great user reaction to it. So do the same with this one. Hit that like button, subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and recommend us to friends and family. We keep it real here at Locked On BC. We're not rosy and maroon and gold. I think we've been pretty fair.
Not anymore. This summer we definitely were.
Yeah. We're as we see things unfolding in front of us, we're being a little tougher. So if you want to get more of that, check us out. Thank you all. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247 and become a subscriber at Eagle Insider. Hope you guys see us there. We'll see you all again soon. Take care. Cheers.